Yeah, so I'm going to be starting again from the scratch. Uh, so we're going to be starting with the framework, and the framework that we're going to be using there is React, which is the number one popular framework that you can use to build any website or web application. It's not must that you use framework to build the site, or you can actually use a normal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's going to work. And when you are dealing with a bigger project or something that contains multiple, all right. So it's not a must that you use a framework or to use a library to build your website or application. You can actually use what you've known already from the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and build whatever page you want to work on, or whatever site you want to work on. But there are some sites that it requires a lot of interaction, and you wiring up the JavaScript yourself to build this interaction can take a lot of time to accomplish the tasks that you want to have on the site. So instead of you creating this JavaScript yourself, you can use popular library or framework that are developed to manage your site, or to build your site rather, by giving it some instruction to follow in order for you to build what you are looking for there. So when you are dealing with this thing yourself using the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you have to talk to JavaScript what you want to do and how to do it. But when you are using some of this popular framework or library to build a website or to build web application, most of the thing that you do there is to give them what you want to do. But how is that thing going to get to the page? Nothing concern you about that one. None of your, like, you don't need to focus on that one. Your own job is to describe what you want, and he knows how to get everything on the page or to remove whatever you want to remove there. And the popular library that we're going to be using here is this React, because it's popular, it's number one out there. And as you can see, this is a library that you can use to build for both the web app or for the native application. And when you're talking about native, you can use it to build for Windows, you can use it to build for mobile application, both on iOS and Android. But the one we are going to be focusing on is the web part. So React help you to build what? User interface. So what do React help you to do is to build user interface. Nothing concerning React about how you move from one page to another. If you want to do something like that, you need to have other library to handle that one for you, and you are going to see how to do that one when we get to that part. But for now, we are just talking about a UI library that can help you to build the user interface. So I want to have the interface. This interface are going to have this interaction. But how is it going to get to the page, or how is it going to get to the browser? The React is going to take all those parts out of our hand, and we only focus on what we want to build, what the application is supposed to do, not how it's going to get to the browser there, like that. And again, React help you to build the user interface. It doesn't give you any other thing apart from that, but you can incorporate other library to make React to be a full functional framework. It's just a library. So the difference between library and framework. When you talk about library, you only focus on a particular stuff, and that's the only thing it's going to do. But when you're talking about a framework is just like a bunch of library coming together to achieve a particular goal. So, and here we're always going to focus on the React part. We have a lot of UI library that you can use, or a lot of framework that you can use, but React is the most popular one among all of them. But how do we set up the project? So last time we actually set up a particular project, which is what I have here running already there. So going back to this page, as you can see, I have this welcome to React, and it have this particular number. But how do we set up this project? So I'm going to go through the process again, how we set up the stuff by using this intermediate folder. to set up another React project. So in order for you to set up React project, you need to have the first thing, which is the Node.js. So the first thing you need to have is the Node.js, which is something that we've talked about before. And how do you get the Node.js? Just go online, type Node, and this one now is going to download the Node.js for you. And what is Node.js? Again, Node.js is a runtime for JavaScript that allows you to run JavaScript code outside of the browser. Any JavaScript code that you want to see, you have to run it on the browser. You have to create the HTML file, then you attach your JavaScript to it. But some of the stuff you want to do have to happen outside of the browser, because whatever you want to do with React, it needs to transform everything to what the browser can understand. And in order for you to do that, it's going to happen behind the scene without even getting to the browser. But how do you run all the JavaScript code outside of the browser? We need a runtime that can allow us to do that. And the runtime that you can use here, one of the runtime or the most popular one that you can use here too is Node.js. We have a lot of runtime that you can use, but this is one here that is popular and it has been long that is there. So in order for you to have it on your system, you need to download it by going to their documentation or go to their site. And once you click on it, it will take you to their site, and you just need to go to the download section. And as you can see, what you just need to do is to click on this download Node.js latest here, or you can go to the download section of the site, take you to the page, and as you can see, it's detecting that I'm using Windows. But if you are not using Windows or you're using another operating system, you can change it here. But by default, it's going to detect that you're using Windows, or detect the operating system you're using on your system there. And once you download this stuff, the next thing is for you to install Node.js. And once the Node.js is installed, how do you know that it's installed? It's by going to your terminal. We've talked about terminal too, some basic command that you can use to navigate your way around the terminal. We've talked about all these things before too, before we move into the React, which is what I have here. So under the terminal, there are some stuff that we've already talked about there. How do you create a folder? How do you move from one folder to another one, and so forth like that? We talked about them, and it's the same thing that is going to that we're going to be using. So in order for you to know that the Node.js has been installed on your system, is by typing Node and you put the -p here, which is you are giving it some option to it. This is the command, and before this thing can work, you must have already installed Node.js. If you don't install Node.js, if you type this node v, you are going to get error. And if you get error that this command is not found, it means the Node.js is not installed on your system. So you need to go online, go to their site, download it, and once you are done downloading the stuff, you open your terminal, you type the node, followed by this hyphen, and followed by v. And as you can see currently here on my system, I'm using this version 20.10.0. So which means here now, the tooling that we need to create React now, we already set up the first process. So the first thing you need to do is to have the node installed on your system. And after you have the node installed on your system, the next thing is now for you to install React. But how do you install React? Setting up React yourself is something that can be tedious and it can take a lot of time to do. But instead of you doing it yourself, we have some other tooling too online. Everything is just about tooling, like to simplify your process of building your application there. So another tooling that we can use here is known as this Vite. So Vite help you to set up some of these popular library or the framework that you use to build web application. So they, as you can see, the build tools for the web. It helps you to set up a lot of framework for you. Can help you to set up the Vue.js, can help you to set up React, can help you to set up Angular and so forth like that. So in order for you to create React application, it's just for you to click on get started on their site, and you scroll down to the section where it mentioned the command to use to set up React. These are the frameworks, or these are the templates that it supported. So it can help you to create normal JavaScript application. It can help you to build this framework, this React, which is what we need. It can help you to build all these other ones too. But the one we want to focus on here is this React here. But how do we do it? As you can see, this is the command. So in order for you to create your project, what you need to do is to use this command. But what is this command npm here? This npm is coming from the node that you are going to, like you've installed. So that's the reason we need the node to be installed first, because npm is part of the node. And what is npm? npm is just node package manager. It helps you to manage all the package that are developed on top of a node. And this tooling that we want to use now to build our React application and the React itself, all of them, they are developed on Node. So which means Node allows them to run outside of the browser before sending the results to the browser. And as you can see, there are different frameworks that you can use. There are different package manager you can use or runtime. So we have this npm, we have this yarn, we have this pnpm. For all this one, you have to install them separately before they can work. For npm, once you installed your node, it's already there. You don't need to do any installation. And this is the command that we need in order for us to start creating our application, which is the React project that we want to create there. But we are using Vite to set it up. So in order for you to do that, you need to run this command, and this command is going to add you some series of questions based on the template you want to use. So it's going to ask a series of questions and you follow through it. And what do we need to do? So let me just clear my terminal there, then paste the command. And once this thing is done, you see that it's going to ask some series of questions. Do you want to install Vite? We answer yes. It will go online, download the necessary stuff that you need. Then from there, it will ask us which framework or which library do we want to use with Vite. So which one do we want to set up? Then we scroll down to pick the React, and again pick JavaScript because we want to do with React and the language we're using is JavaScript. So we pick all these options and it's going to set up the necessary folder that we need. Currently, right now, as you can see, under this intermediate, there's nothing inside it. But don't forget, before you can run this your project, you need to be in the correct folder. And right now, I'm currently inside this intermediate, which we've already talked about how you can move from one folder to another one by using the CD to change from one directory to another. So let's wait for this to load, and once it's done loading, depending on the network speed, then it's going to ask, so it's going to ask you, do you want to proceed? Yes. So it's going to download the Vite, which is the tooling that is going to set up React for us. And once it's done downloading the Vite, then it will start asking us the question for setting up a particular project that we want to set up there. So let me wait for it. So now Vite is done downloading. So the next thing is asking us is that what name do we want to use for our project? Whatever name that you use here, that's what is going to use to create a subfolder under the current one you are using. But if you want it to use the current folder to set up your project, then you can use the dot. If you remember from the HTML linking that we talked about, dot means current folder, dot mean previous folder. So we want everything, the project that we want to set up, we want to have it directly under this particular folder. If you want to have a nested folder under it, you can just mention the name that you want to use. And if you don't mention anything, as you can see, this is the name it's going to use by default, because you must supply a name. And that name that you want to use do not have anything like space, do not have any illegal character. Anywhere you want to add space, then you use hyphen, and that's why it's giving us this sample here. But since I want to use the current folder and that folder is not having any space, that's the reason why anytime I'm naming my folder, I always follow all this convention by using standard name without space, and make sure that anywhere that I want to add space, I will use underscore or hyphen to bridge the name. That's why all these things are in this way, because some of these things that you want to set up, you need to use a correct name before this thing will work correctly. So I'm going to use dots, which is going to pick this name there. So whatever folder you're working on is going to pick it up when you use dots. So the next thing now, as you can see, we need to select the framework that we want to use. So you can use your arrow up or arrow down to move to which one you want to use. Since we want to set up React, so currently now the arrow is pointing to React, so we just need to press enter. So the next thing, which variant of React do you want to set up? So what we are dealing with right now is the basic stuff. So you only want to use JavaScript, or you can use this JavaScript plus all these other engine, but we only need the normal JavaScript and the Vite to take care of everything for us. So press enter, and once this thing is done, as you can see, it's going to create all the necessary folder that we need to build our application. So in order for your application to start working, the next thing you need to use is this npm again, which is this install, which is something I've talked about under the library or under the module that you can use to install other people or third-party packages. Because the React that you want to use now, you are not the one that built the React. So somebody has already created this thing somewhere, put it there, and anytime you need it, you can go there and copy the code. But how do you copy the code to your system? So you need to use npm to install the package. And this npm here is Node Package Manager. The job of this one is to look for all the packages that you want to install, and if those packages too are depending on another package, it's going to make sure that everything is installed in your project in order for everything to work correctly. So it's going to look for all the packages, because right now I want to use npm install. And once you use npm install without mentioning the package you want to add there, it's going to come into this file, which is something I've explained before too. And under this file, it will look for all your dependency and this dev dependency, and it's going to install all of them. So these are the library that we need in order for us to be able to build our application. Why these are what we need in order for us to run our application locally when we are doing the testing. So these are some of the library that you need to simplify the process of you developing your application. Why the one under dependencies are the actual stuff that you need to build your application for production use. But this one, they are really useful for developing the application there. And in order for you to install them one by one, you can't just be coming here and be copying them to install one by no. This npm is really smart. Once you just use npm install or npm I, which is the same thing, it will come to this file and it's going to install all these packages for you. And anything that all these packages do that are depending on is going to put everything together. And where this is going to put it, is going to generate something like this, which is this node modules. And once it's done generating the node modules, this is where it's going to put all the packages that you need for your project to run. And currently here, I have it under the basic, but under the public here, I don't have the node modules because we've not run this npm install. Once you run npm install, it's going to install all the packages. But I'm not going to do that for now. When we get to the intermediate part, I'll be doing that. But I'll go back into this basic, which is the same thing, is the same structure, no difference. If you look at everything, they have the same structure. So under this basic, we have the public, the source. The same thing here too, we have the public and the source and some other extra files. So I'll go back into this basic and I will use it to explain the concept or all the stuff that we're going to be talking about there like that. So these are the concepts that we need to know before we start building or before we start working on some of these app or the sites that we're going to be using for training there. So when you create any React application using Vite, this is the folder structure that you are going to have. So starting from this public all the way to this source, then you are going to have some of these extra configuration file that you need, like this Vite config here. But this is the one that will connect your React to the tooling, and it make sure that everything works together the way it's supposed to be, so that when you run your application and you make any changes to your code, you're going to see the changes on the browser instantly. Not that you have to stop what you are doing and now reload it again. No, we want to have something like the live server that we normally use for our normal HTML. But here now you cannot use live server because this one is not just normal HTML code. So the browser doesn't know what is going on here. So Vite or React needs to connect the code that you have, whatever code that you build, it needs to take everything and connect it to what the browser is going to render. And where is this thing happening? This magic is happening inside this main.jsx. So this is where React is connecting everything that you are going to be doing inside this source into the HTML file. So here we really have single HTML file, and this single HTML file is the one that is going to handle everything that you have in your application. And that's the reason why you normally hear the word SPA here. What is SPA? This is what we call single page application. So SPA is a single page application. Why is it called that? is because we only have one HTML. But this one HTML will be the one that is going to be acting as if you are moving from one HTML to another. No, you are not moving from one HTML to another. What you're actually changing is what we call component, which is what we are going to get to soon. There like that. So the job of React, take all your components, connect it to what it can display on the HTML. And as you can see, it's getting this document by ID or getting element by ID. What is the ID root? So where is it coming from? If you open this HTML, you are going to see that there is one div there that have this ID root. And inside this div, that's where React is going to put all your code after it's done converting everything to necessary stuff that the browser can see or render on the page. And as you can see, this HTML is connected to the JavaScript file, which is this main. And inside that place, whatever code that is coming from the source here is going to connect them together like that. So if you look at it inside, let me close all these other items. So close the sample, close the bit, and close this app because I don't need them. So inside this our main.jsx, you see that we are loading this app. But where is app coming from? The app is just something that we are importing from this file. And what's the name of the file? It is this app.jsx. So inside this file, this is where you are going to connect to every other functionality that you want your application to have there. And when you are connecting to any file there, what you actually going to be connected to is what we call components, because this is the building block in React. So this is the major thing that you need to know in React. So everything in React is just a component. And what is component? A component is just a reusable block of code that returns the UI that you want to show on the screen. So when you're talking about component, this is just a reusable and self-contained block that couple everything, that means the logic and the UI that you want to show to the user on the screen. For example, now this side here, now it have this button to toggle from the dark mode to light mode. So you can think of this thing as the UI. Then inside this UI, there's some logic. One of the logic is that when you click on it, it's moved from one side to the other one, depending on where you have it. So if it's on the left, if you click, it will go to the right and it will change the color to the appropriate one. And if it's on the right, it will go back to the left and it will change the color to what it needs to do. So you can think of this button or this stuff that we have here as a component, because it stands on its own and it have its own logic and the UI that you want to display to the user on the screen. So this thing can be think of as a component, and inside the component you have the UI and you have the data and the logic that you want to showcase to the user. And this thing now, we can reuse it on this page in different places. For example, like this menu here, we can create a component for this single one, and this single one here can be reused for this, can be reused here, and so forth like that. Again too, this is another kind of a component, because this one is like a drop down. So this is another component, but this component can be used for the same thing here. We don't need to create two. It's only one that we are going to create, but we are going to have a copy of it for this particular items that we have on the list. So the component is just a reusable block of code that contains both the logic and the UI that you want to showcase on the screen, or that you want to show to the user on the screen. So in React, a component is just a reusable and self-contained, so which means it can stand on its own, just like this app right now. If you look at the screen, what are we displaying on that screen? We're actually showing a particular text, which is this welcome to React here. Where is the text coming from? As you can see, the text is actually coming from this place. So this entire stuff here is what we call component. So how do you create a component in React? To create a component, you just create a function, you give it a name, and that your function is going to return something known as JSX, which I will get to soon there like that. So when you want to create a component in React, to create a component, you are going to create a function, which you can use arrow function or this normal function like this. So I'm going to call it my component. So when you want to create a component, you create a component or you create a function, and this is your function. In order for it to be a component, The first thing is that by convention, the name of your component must start with capital letter. So if you look at this one, I see that the name is not small letter. So when you're creating component, you can't do it like this. As you can see, this is wrong. This is not how to create a component. When you want to create a component, the first letter must start with capital letter. Then after you have it there like that, you are going to return some JSS code. And what is JSS code? I'll be talking about it here under the JSS element and JSX expression. So JSS code allows you to mix HTML and JavaScript together inside one file. With the help of JSX now, we can create a code that looks like normal HTML. Or technically, they are not HTML, they are just JavaScript XML here. So that's the full meaning of this JSX. JavaScript XML, which is a way of you combining HTML code or anything that looks like HTML and JavaScript together inside one place. And by the time we get to the browser, we have to going to transform everything to a proper stuff that the browser can interpret it. So when you are creating a component, you are going to create a function. And when you create a function, that your function is going to have all the logic that you want, whatever variable that you want to do. For example, you can have this user name like this is going to be Warisola like this. So this is my component. It has some data inside it. But what do you want to show on the screen? Whatever you return from this your component, that's what React is going to render. So we call it render. Render means what you want to see on the screen. So I'll be using the keyword render a lot. So render means whatever you want to show on the screen. So that's whatever you are seeing on the screen, that's what the component is rendering out. That's what the React is putting to the user there. And here, what will you be returning is just JSX code. And what is JSX code? Under JSX code, we have this element and we have expression. JSX element look like your normal HTML that you know. Anytime you hear the word JSX element, it means you are just bringing in the same HTML that you know there. All the tag that you know there, you can bring them in. Just that the way you represent some of them are quite different there, but it still look like normal HTML. For example, here now, I'm going to be returning my p tag here. So to you, it looks as if you are doing normal HTML, but technically, this is not HTML. This is JSX element. So if you hover on it, as you can see, it is JSX element. By the time you get to the browser, that's when the React is going to create normal p tag. But to you, it looks as if you are typing p tag. You are not typing p tag. This is JSX element. So whatever you're going to be returning, it can be JSX element or it can be expression. There like that. And what is expression in React? Expression is any JavaScript code that you want it to be part of the JSX element. And how do you create the code? For example, here now, if I just say user name like this, so we have this user, so we have the username. This one is not going to translate to this variable that we have here. It will not work at all. So saving this component here now, how do we use it? Because we want to see the result on the screen. So going back to the page, as you can see, nothing is showing yet. So in order for us to see our component, we need to render it inside the component that the React is putting on the page. If you go back to this main.jsx, you can see that the only thing that React is showing is this app. And what is inside the app is just this h1, which is what we are seeing on the screen. But that's the only thing React knows about. Every other component you have there, React doesn't know about them. You have to tell the React that you want to show this thing on the screen. And how do you talk to React to show it on the screen? You can go to any component that is already on the screen and we render this component. So how do you render a component in React? To render the component is just as if you are working with your normal HTML code. So you open the same bracket that you know, then you call your component and you close it like this. So this is the self-closing tag that you know about before, or you can do it like this. Any one of them is going to work. Whether you open and close directly or you do this opening and the closing tag for the component, both of them are going to work. So this one will work and this one too will work. But there's sometimes you need this one and you don't need it, because when you want to pass something under it later on, you have to use this method. Something is wrong here. So you have to use this method later on when you need to pass something inside it. But for now, I'll be using this method, so I'm going to disable this one for now and save it. And once this thing is saved here, so you see that on the screen, we are going to have the text that we pass. As you can see, it's not showing Warisola, it's just passing the text that I put here. And it's showing the p tag on the page. If I remove the p tag and change it to H3, then by the time you get to the screen, the React tool is going to put H3 element. What you are seeing here is on the HTML element. This is what we call JSX element. But what you are seeing on the screen is not the normal HTML element. So React is going to convert everything that you have here into a proper code that you can see on the screen. No, we did not talk to React that how is it going to put this H3 on the screen. We don't care. Our own is to tell you what we want on the screen, and React knows how to take care of every other thing to make sure that this thing is on the screen. How does it get there? We don't care about that. That's the reason why we are using React, or we are using the library to take care of that stuff for us. Not that we want to use the JavaScript directly to do it ourselves. We want to use normal JavaScript. What you have to do here is to create your normal HTML inside this file, and if that this thing require any JavaScript code, you have to create the JavaScript file and you select the element. After you select the element, you now put the text inside it. But instead of you doing all this process, you just go to React, declare that, just give it everything you want to show. It knows how to make it appear on the screen there. But right now, this username that I have here, I want the React to interpret it as a variable. But whatever you put inside your JSX element is going to see them as normal text. It will not interpret them as a JavaScript code. Whatever you put inside your JSX element is not going to interpret them as JavaScript code. It's going to interpret it as normal text. And that's the reason why you see that it's showing the text that I type. But I don't want it to be like that. I want it to show the value of this variable. And that's where expression comes in. So JSX expression allows you to embed JavaScript code inside your JSX element. So with JSX expression, you can put JavaScript code inside your JSX element. And in order for you to put it there, you are going to be using this curly brace. So this is what we call JSX expression here. So anytime you are inside your HTML, which is the JSX element, in order for you to interpret whatever you type as JavaScript code, then you need to put JavaScript code inside this curly brace. And whatever you want to put inside this curly brace, it's something that needs to return a value. And that's why it is expression. Expression is any calculation that you've done that is returning a particular value. And this variable too, when you call them, they're always going to return a value for you, which is something you can go to the browser and test it out. You go to the console of the browser, you type, for example here, so let me go back, let me open this in, open the console like this. And once the console is done opening there, we just need to go to open the stuff. And here now I can create a variable, for example, username 1 is going to be Waris like this. So now I can just call this username 1. As you can see, it will return back the value for me. So your variable, their expression, so when you call them, they are going to give you whatever they hold. They return back a value. So anything that can return back value to you, you can use it inside this curly brace. So which means here now, I can just pass this my username. So what this thing is going to do when the React want to put this in on the page, it will see that, okay, you put this inside curly brace. That means there is a variable, or this thing is coming from somewhere. This is a value, or this thing is representing a value that is coming from somewhere. So it will find it in your component, and if you can find it there, it will replace this name with the actual value that that thing is representing. And by the time you get to the browser, what the browser is going to see there is the actual value that you put there, as you can see. And if you go to the HTML code, you're not going to see anything like this in again. Can you see? There's no curly brace. So by the time you get to the browser, React has already converted and do all the necessary JavaScript that it needs to do to make sure that this thing appear on the screen. You don't need to be telling it that select this, go to this place, select this element, then now put this thing inside it, and you put this text there. No, you don't need to talk to it how it's going to do it. Your own is to tell it what to do. React will take care of how to do it. So your own is give it what to do, and React will go forward and carry out the action. And what do we want to do here? We want to display this component. So what is inside the component? What we have is this variable, and this variable, or inside this component here, we are returning H3. Don't forget, whatever you return from your component, that's what React is going to show on the screen. Anything you did not return, it will not show it. So which means here, I can even have a const age to be 1. Since I'm not returning this age, you are not going to see it on the screen at all. The only thing you are going to see on the screen is whatever you return from your component. And whatever you be returning from your component is just GSX element or GSX expression. GSX element is your normal HTML that you know with and some of them have some variants because the way it works in normal HTML, it will not work here because you are dealing with JavaScript. So you need to represent them in a different way. But most of these elements, the way you represent them in your HTML, that same way you are going to represent them here when you are using them as the GSX element. But this is not normal H3 that you know. This is not normal H3. This is GSX H3. So React will now convert it to a proper stuff that will now display on the screen as the normal H3 that the browser knows about. This is not normal H3 that you know or the browser know. But with the help of JSX now, we are able to write HTML code in our JavaScript file. In our JavaScript file, we are able to write HTML code. Because when you are dealing with normal JavaScript, you cannot do something like this. It will not work. In order for you to create H3 like this in normal JavaScript, you have to firstly use this document. So this is how to do it in your normal JavaScript. You have to use document.create element. So this is how to do it like that when you are doing, and from here you pass the H3 like this. Then if you want to put content, can you see it will create it? If you want to put content inside it, so you can save it somewhere first so that you can have reference to it. So const my element like this will just be this. So if I call element, as you can see, it is H3, but nothing is inside it. So in order for us to put something, we can now use this our inner HTML like this. And what do we want to put here? I want to put Warisola like this. I like that. But this thing is still not on the screen. So in order for you to get to the screen, you need to select where you want to put it and you now put it stuff there. Look at this step you have to follow just to create normal H3. Now imagine you have a bunch of elements that you need to create. Are you not going to be doing it yourself like this? No. We want a simple way to achieve the same thing. And that's where GSX comes in to simplify the process for you. So behind the scene, what you are typing here, this is what is going to be performed at the end of the stuff. It will create the element for you, it will put the content that needs to be there, and at the same time, it will put it on the screen wherever you place it in your code are there. It will make sure it's at that place on the page too. But we don't need to do all these steps. Our one is just to describe what we want. We are describing to it that we want H3 and we want the content of that H3 to be the content of this variable. So how is it going to get into the browser? We don't care. React will take care of that. And that's the reason why you are seeing this Warisola on the screen. And you can update the value and you see that it will update the content too on the screen. Because when React sees that something changed in your component, it will create it again and put the content on the screen. But it's smart. It's going to do it in a smarter, like in a smart way, not that the way you are going to be doing it yourself. And if I want to show this variable h too, I can do it too by just creating another expression. So curly brace will create the expression for you like that. And I can pass the age here. And once this thing is saved, you see that on the screen, we are going to have age in front of Warisola. As you can see, it's showing 1. And the advantage of this thing is that you can perform any of your normal JavaScript that can return value. So here, I can add maybe like 5 to the age. So what it's going to do is here, it will compute this value, and the final result is what the user is going to see on the screen. So anything you put inside the curly brace is going to compute the results, and that result is what is now going to show on the screen. That's GSX. It will always compute the result. So we put the variable here. The result here is to get a value from the variable, and to get it and replace it with whatever that variable is like that. The same thing with age. We have this value, then we are adding it to 5. So it will compute the stuff first, then the result will now be sent to the browser. And please, whatever you are doing here, everything later on, they will get converted to string. So whatever you are doing here, whether it is number, by the time you get to the browser, what you are going to see there is string. So which means it will convert it to string. And again, It's not everything that you can just pass here. It's not all the type of value you can pass here. Or there's some value you pass, the way React interpret them in expression is quite different from the normal JavaScript. For example, when you pass undefined into the stuff, so what is it going to do on the screen? Because this is a valid JavaScript type. So now save it and just let me put something in front of it so that we can see that it is actually there. So 2 plus 3, is going to give us 5. But now by the time everything gets to the screen, you see that we're going to see the username, we're going to see the age plus 5, and we're going to see this 2 plus 3. But what's happened to undefined? It's gone. So look at it. Undefined is not there. Why is it not there? Because React, anytime it sees undefined as part of the expression, it will convert it to just empty string like this. So what you're going to see on the screen is just empty string like this. So that's what is going on there. So anytime you're using undefined in your expression, what it will convert it to is just this quote that you have here, nothing. And that's why you see there is no space there. But every other value that it knows how to work with, for like number, when you deal with number, by the time you get to the screen, it will convert it to string. So this 5 you are seeing here is not normal 5. This 6 you are seeing here is not normal 6. They are just string that is going on here. And you can pass other type of value too when you are dealing with expression. For example, we can pass number, which is what we've done already at the top. You can pass string. To pass string, you have to put it in a quote. So when you're dealing with string in your expression, you have to be in a code because the JavaScript are the same. So when you're dealing with expression, if it's not expression, you don't need to put it in a string. You don't need to put it in a quote. So if it is not part of the expression, just type it normally. But if it is part of the expression and it is string, you have to put in a code. Because whatever that is inside this code and whatever that is inside this curly brace, it will treat it as a JavaScript code. So which means it will check whether it is valid JavaScript or not. If I just type this in without putting it in like this and I just save it, you see that this thing will crash and you will see the error. Can you see? Nothing is showing again. As you can see, a bunch of error here. Why? Can you see? It's looking for where there is that for stuff. It cannot find it because it sees it as a variable. Anytime you do it like this, you see it as a variable. To check your component. Does your component have this particular variable? No. If it doesn't have it, it will bring out the error. So that's how this thing works. Whatever you put inside this curly brace, it will treat it as a valid JavaScript code. But if you don't put it inside the curly brace, it will just treat it as normal text that you use to type in your HTML. So if you do 2 plus 3 here, this is just normal text. If you save it, by the time it will get to the screen, can you see? It will just be the same thing that you type. Whatever you type in your JSX element and it is not inside curly brace, which is the expression there, it will just return it the same way you type it. So if you type undefined, if I type undefined like this and save it, it will just return it back the way I type it. But once it's inside the curly brace, it will treat it as JSX expression. And what is expression? It's just the JavaScript code that is going to return a value. And whatever value is returning back, that's what React is going to show on the screen. But if it is not inside this curly brace, it will just send it to the browser the same way you type it. So 2 plus 3 here has no meaning. It's just 2 plus 3 like the way it is being typed like that. So it will not change anything at all. So you need to know about expression because these are the basic block of React that you need to know. And this is what you'll be developing on to talk about other kind of functionality that we're going to be having in React, like these props, children, the state, all of them, they are depending on this basic block, which is our component, the JSX element, or the JSX expression. There's nothing you want to do that you're not going to have component in React. There's nothing you want to do that you're not going to use JSX element or you're not going to use JSX expression. So this is what you're going to be using to send the result to the browser. So whatever HTML code that you want to generate is going to be JSX element. And that's what React is going to send to the browser here like that. And how do you create a component? To create a component, you create a function, and that function is going to return some JSX code. And whatever JSX code you are returning there, that's what React is going to show on the screen. But inside your JSX element here, you can actually use JSX expression. which means in this your element, you want to do some JavaScript calculation there. So in order for you to do that, you need to put it in a curly brace. And whatever you have it inside it, it will interpret it as a valid JavaScript code. But the way it returns some of the results is quite different from other. When you are dealing with number, it will calculate the stuff and give you the results that you want from it. But if you are dealing with undefined or you are dealing with null, these two, they are not going to return anything back to you. They will not return anything. They will just return empty string. So on the screen, you are not going to see them when you are using them as expression. So because they have nothing to show. As you can see, I was supposed to have one before the first hyphen, nothing. We're supposed to have another one before the second hyphen there, we don't have anything. Because that's how it works. So it doesn't show anything when you deal with null or you deal with undefined. All this one, they will return nothing or they will not show anything on the screen when you're using them as expression. But when you're using them normally inside your element, whatever you type that is not part of the expression, the way you type it, that's the same way React is going to show it on the screen. So whatever stuff you type is going to show them the way you put it there if it's not part of the expression. But if it's part of the expression, the undefined and null will not show anything on the screen. It will just be represented as this empty string, which means nothing will be shown to the user on the screen there. And again, too, the way it works with array too is different. When you are dealing with React and you are using array inside the expression, the way it's going to work with them is different from the normal JavaScript. And we're going to be using this thing later on. The same concept here is what we're going to be using later on when we're dealing with this list rendering. Because of the way react with this particular array. So if I save this thing now and run it, you see what will happen. Can you see what it did? It joined everything together. So when you are using array inside your JSX expression, what React is going to do is that every item you have inside your array is just going to join them together as string. Don't forget, whatever you are using inside your expression, it will convert them to string and send it to the browser. So the same thing here too, when you pass array of simple value, not complex value, you cannot put object or cannot render object. React doesn't know how to render object on the screen. So it knows how to render this your array. And what does it do with array? Whatever array you pass into it, it will transform it to this. For example, we have this array of 1, 6, 7, and 8 like this. By the time you get to the browser, this is what React is going to do. It will take all the value you have there, just join them together and send it to the browser. And that's what it's doing there. So whatever value you have inside your array, it will join all of them together and send it to the browser there like that. So all these things are very important. All these things, they are very important because when you started using some value and you're not seeing them on the screen, just notice all the way React used to manage the value, because the way it handle each value is different from one another like that. So when you're dealing with number, you see the number on the screen, the way you type it. And when you are dealing with undefined and null, you are not going to see anything on the screen. If it is normal string and it's part of your expression, you need to put in a quote. But if it's not part of expression, just type them the way you want them to appear on the screen there. That's the same way it's going to put. And when you are dealing with array too, the way it works with array is quite different. Any array that you pass to your expression, React is going to join all of them together as a string. And that string is what is now sent to the browser. So whatever you put inside your string, so Wari Solar like this. So these are my array. This is going to be Raster like this. This is going to be Unilearning like this. So Unilearning like this. So say, by the time you get to the browser, you see that it will join everything together and just dump them into the element that you are working with there like that. So let me see. And as you can see, so array that we type that join everything together. And if you go to the HTML code, that's the same thing you are going to see there. So inside our H3, as you can see, that join everything together. Can you see that they are string? So convert everything to string. Even if it is number that you typed before, it will convert it to string. So that's what I meant by this line here. So whatever you are sending from here, even though to you is number, But by the time you get to the browser, everything will get converted to string, because string is what you always see there like that. You can see all of them. They are in a quote, which means they are string of data like that. So this is how this thing uh, works. But by the time the browser see them, it will not put that code, because the browser is smart. It knows what to display here like that. So GSX element, GSX expression, you should know the difference between them. So if you create element, you know what I'm talking about. If you create expression to display a value, you know what I'm talking about. And at the same time, you can create components to display data on the screen. So here I have this my first component which I'm displaying under this app. And why is it showing? Is because this app too is being rendered. As you can see, in order for you to show something on the screen, you need to render your component. And how do you render component? You do it as if you are creating your normal HTML code. So create a component in React. You create a function. Your function must start with capital letter. The other name can be any case, but the first one must be capital letter. That's how it's going to treat the function as a component. And inside your component, you can do whatever you want, but you must return something that you want to display on the screen. You can't render a component that is not returning anything. So for example, if I just create a component and I call it this Wari Solar like this, because you can call it anything you want, and inside this your component you are not returning anything, this is not a valid component. This is wrong, because this thing is going to return undefined. Any function in JavaScript that is not returning anything, as you can see, is going to return undefined. And you now want to render the component, React will not see anything to send to the browser, because I know when you render undefined, nothing will show on the screen. So if you try to render this one right now like that, we have nothing to render on the screen. It's just empty component, which is useless. And as you can see, where is it? So let me reload the page like this. As you can see, we don't have anything on the screen, because any function that you have that is not returning anything, it will return undefined. And you know the way undefined will display on the screen, nothing will show on the screen. So whatever component you have must return something, but that the time is going to be useful. And whatever you are returning will be your GSS code, which is what am I calling GSS code? GSS code is just expression or element. Element is your normal HTML element that you know, but the way you represent some of them is quite different. So, but here you only see that a lot of them looks alike, like that. So my name is Wari Solar, like this. And now, since this component is returning GSS code or is returning GSS element, so this stuff that we are returning here, that's what React is going to send to the browser. Can you see now? We now have the component. And when you go to the code, you won't see anything like component. What it will do is to create all the elements. That's the thing about React. You give it what to do, not how to do it. So it doesn't concern you how to bring this H1 to this place. Your own is just to tell it what you want to see on the screen, and it's going to take care of the other stuff for you like that. So this today is just for the introduction about what we are going to be talking about. So in the next class here, we're going to dive more into this GSX. We're going to be talking about props and children, because some of these components you are going to reuse them, just like what I mentioned here, like that. We can create a single component for this item and we can now reuse it. But if you look at it, the content that is inside them is different, just that they have the same look, the same styling, but the actual content is different. So how do we talk to the same component to behave in different way, or to display different data but same interface but different data? Then we are going to be talking about that under this props and children. Then after that, your component is supposed to be able to hold some data, just like this one. This thing have some data to know that you are in dark mode or you are in light mode. So your component is supposed to be able to hold the data, and that data should be able to change over time, because this thing now is holding a particular data, which is like is dark mode on. So that thing will either be true or false, and it's something that can change, and that's what we call state. State is anything that can
Right,
move
man.
from one value to another during the process of you working with the application here like that. And we are going to see how we can create states in React that can change. As you can see, we use it to store and manage dynamic data, something that can change. You can be static too, you can use it for just waste of typing. If you are using it to manage static data, why can't you just declare your variable directly and it will be there? But it's something that can change, then you are going to use states to hold it. Just like the variable that I created, I can't just change it directly in my program like that. It will not work. That's not how we do it in React. React needs to know that this thing has changed. And in order for React to know that this thing has changed, we need to convert it to a state so that React can keep tracking of it. And once you update the state, React will know that this component, something inside it has changed, and it will recreate it again or render it again, and you see the new value on the browser. Apart from that, we need to be able to add interaction to our element, just like what is going on here. You click on this stuff, it's changing from dark to light or light to dark. Doesn't care where you click, it will always change. So it's toggling the stuff. So we need to be able to add events to our element too. Anytime you click on this component, it's going to do something for you. That's where the event is going to come in there. And again too, we need to conditionally render some stuff. Look at it. What's conditional render? You want to render something based on a condition. Look at it here. This is one of the conditional rendering here. If you click on this thing, can you see that the icon changed? When it is on the right side, the icon is this one, and when it is on the right side, the icon is different. So this thing is
It's like
yeah, so the thing is changing based on a condition. That's what we call conditional rendering. You want to show something based on a particular condition. So if this thing is true, do this. If it's not true, do another thing. So all these things, we are going to talk about them in the next class there. So this is where I'll be stopping for today. And your assignment now is for you to set up the node on your system. So you need to go and download node. And after you are done downloading the node, you need to go to this website, which is this Vite. And once you get to the website, you are going to go to the get started and set up a React project that is going to run. So when you set up, follow the due process that is there. I'm going to release this video, but this thing is being recorded. So I'll upload it on YouTube and I will send the link to you, the playlist. So you can go there, watch the stuff again, and you use it to set up your own project, and it must run. And when it's done, then I will check it in the next class before we continue with the class there. So that's going to be all. Let me stop the recording.